I discovered my husband was lying to me about a family engagement party, one I wasn't invited to, through a social media post. And in that moment, everything I thought I knew about our life together shattered. My name is Avery Fletcher, and I've always felt like an outsider in my husband Noah's family. It was a feeling I had grown accustomed to over the years, like an old sweater that was too tight but familiar enough to keep wearing. When Noah casually mentioned that his family was having a weekend reunion at the lake, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this time would be different. Maybe I would finally be included in their world, a world that often felt like a closed door to me. As I buttered my toast that morning, I watched Noah's face, searching for any hint of excitement. Instead, he seemed distracted, his eyes glued to his phone. It buzzed incessantly, and I couldn't help but feel a pang of jealousy. He grabbed it faster than I'd ever seen him move, swiping across the screen with a practiced ease that made my stomach twist. When he deleted the message without a word, I felt a bitter taste in my mouth, like I had just bitten into a lemon. "Everything okay?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light, but the tension hung in the air like a thick fog. "Just Mom," he replied, setting the phone face down on the table. "Family's doing a little reunion thing at the lake this weekend. Nothing special." The way he said, "nothing special," made me pause. Noah's family didn't do casual. They planned Christmas dinners 3 months in advance and sent formal invitations to backyard barbecues. Nothing with the Fletchers was ever just nothing special. I forced a smile, trying to mask my unease. "That sounds nice. Which lake?" I asked, hoping to draw him out, to feel included in whatever plans were brewing. "The usual spot. You know where we went for Dad's birthday last year," he said, already moving toward the coffee maker, his back to me. "Just the old crowd. Golf. Boring conversations about the stock market. You'd hate it." His words stung. I had been bored out of my mind at those gatherings, but I would have endured it for the chance to be part of his family, to feel like I belonged. "Well, maybe I could come for part of it," I suggested, my voice barely above a whisper. "I don't mind the boring stuff if it means spending time with everyone." For a fleeting moment, I saw something flicker across his face, fear, perhaps? Panic. It was gone so quickly that I almost convinced myself I had imagined it. "Babe, honestly, you'd be miserable," he said, brushing off my suggestion. "Mom's already complaining about the humidity. Dad's bringing those golf clubs he never stops talking about." As he kissed my forehead and headed upstairs to get ready for work, I sat there, staring at his empty coffee cup. Something still felt wrong, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. The unease settled deeper in my gut, whispering that this weekend might not be what it seemed. As the weekend approached, I tried to shake off the nagging feeling that something was off. Noah had left for the lake early Friday morning, and I was left behind, feeling like a ghost in my own home. I had decided to join my friends Dana and Mel for a ski trip, hoping the fresh air and adrenaline would distract me from the unease gnawing at my insides. The crisp mountain air was invigorating, and as I glided down the slopes, I felt a fleeting sense of freedom. But that feeling was short-lived. After a morning of skiing, we gathered at a cozy lodge for hot cocoa and laughter. It was during this moment of camaraderie that my phone buzzed with a notification that would change everything. I glanced at my screen, and my heart dropped. There it was, a tagged photo from Noah's aunt, Carol. My fingers trembled as I tapped on the notification, revealing a picture that sent shockwaves through my entire being. In the image, Carol was beaming in a stunning burgundy dress, standing under an elaborate crystal chandelier. Behind her, I could see round tables adorned with cream-colored linens and floral centerpieces. This wasn't a casual family reunion. It was an engagement party, and my husband was there, smiling in a black tuxedo I had never seen before. The caption read, "So proud of my youngest nephew's engagement. Marcus and Sarah, you're perfect together." What a magical evening celebrating love. My breath caught in my throat as I zoomed in on the background, desperately searching for familiar faces. There was Noah, laughing and embracing Marcus, his younger brother, who had been dating Sarah for 3 years. I had never heard a whisper of an engagement, let alone an extravagant party. Panic surged through me as I scrolled through the tagged accounts, confirming my worst fears. Noah's family had gathered to celebrate a momentous occasion, and I was nowhere to be found. I felt the walls of the lodge closing in around me, the laughter of my friends fading into a distant echo. My heart raced as I realized I had been deliberately excluded from this significant event. "Everything okay?" Mel asked, glancing over at me, concern etched on her face. I couldn't respond. I was too busy scrolling through the photos, each one a dagger to my heart. There was Noah giving a speech, his face lit up with joy, surrounded by family members who had always treated me like a stranger. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. How could he lie to me so easily, pretending everything was fine while celebrating a milestone without me? I called Noah, my fingers shaking as I hit his contact. It rang once, twice, 3 times, then went to voicemail. "Hi, you've reached Noah. Leave a message, and I'll get back to you." I hung up, my hands trembling. The truth was undeniable. I had been living a lie, and the weight of it threatened to crush me. In that moment, I realized that this weekend would change everything. The lodge felt suffocating as I sat there, my heart racing and my mind swirling with disbelief. I could hear the laughter of Dana and Mel in the background, but it felt like a distant memory, overshadowed by the betrayal I had just uncovered. I needed to confront Noah, to demand answers, but the thought of it made my stomach churn. How could he have hidden something so monumental from me? After a few agonizing hours, I finally mustered the courage to call him again. This time he answered, his voice casual, as if nothing was amiss. "Hey, babe, how's the skiing?" he asked, and I could hear the background noise of laughter and clinking glasses. My heart sank further. "Not great, Noah. I just saw the photos from your brother's engagement party. Why didn't you tell me?" My voice trembled, a mix of anger and hurt spilling out. There was a pause on the other end, and I could almost hear the gears turning in his mind. "Avery, don't Avery me. You lied to me. You said it was a family reunion, and now I find out it's a celebration of your brother's engagement? How could you do this?" My voice rose, drawing the attention of my friends, who exchanged worried glances. "I didn't want to upset you," he replied, his tone defensive. "Mom thought it would be better if you didn't come. She was worried about the atmosphere, about how you'd feel." "Worried about how I'd feel?" I echoed, incredulous. "What about how I feel now? You let me believe I was just missing a boring weekend while you celebrated a life-changing moment without me. You didn't even think to include me in the conversation." "I thought it would be easier this way," he said, his voice softening. "You know how my family is. They can be intense." "Intense?" I scoffed. "You mean exclusionary? You've always known how I feel about your family, and yet you chose to protect their feelings over mine. I'm your wife, Noah. I deserve to be part of these moments." The silence that followed was deafening. I could hear the distant laughter from the party, a stark reminder of what I was missing. "Avery, please," he finally said, his voice strained. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this." "Then how did it happen?" I shot back, my heart pounding. "You've been lying to me for who knows how long. This isn't just about the engagement party. It's about how you've treated me and your family. I've always felt like an outsider, and now I know why." As I spoke, memories flooded back. Family gatherings where conversations halted when I entered the room, the inside jokes I was never part of, the polite smiles that never felt warm. I had tried to convince myself it was just their dynamic, but now I saw it clearly. I was never truly accepted. "I thought things were getting better," I said, my voice breaking. "Last Christmas, your mom even complimented my casserole. I thought maybe I was finally becoming part of the family." Noah sighed, and I could hear the frustration in his breath. "I'm sorry, Avery. I really am. I just didn't know how to handle it." "Maybe you should have tried," I replied, my heart heavy, because now I'm left feeling more alone than ever. As I hung up, the weight of the conversation settled over me like a thick fog. I felt lost, but I also felt a flicker of determination. I wouldn't let this define me. I needed to reflect on what I truly wanted, and for the first time, I realized I had the power to choose my own path. After hanging up the phone, I felt a whirlwind of emotions crashing over me: anger, sadness, and a deep sense of betrayal. I stepped outside the lodge, needing fresh air to clear my mind. The cold mountain breeze bit at my cheeks, but it also invigorated me, sharpening my thoughts. I leaned against the wooden railing, staring out at the snow-covered peaks, trying to find clarity amidst the chaos in my heart. As I watched the skiers glide effortlessly down the slopes, I felt a pang of envy. They were free, unburdened by the weight of secrets and lies. I had spent too long feeling like a shadow in Noah's life, always on the periphery, never fully embraced by his family. The realization hit me hard. I had been waiting for permission to belong, but I had never truly claimed my space. I took a deep breath, letting the crisp air fill my lungs. I needed to reclaim my voice, to stand up for myself in a way I had never done before. I thought about the engagement party, about how Noah had chosen to protect his family's image over my feelings. It was time to stop being the quiet, accommodating wife and start being the woman I knew I could be. Returning to the lodge, I found Dana and Mel huddled over their phones, their laughter fading as they noticed my somber expression. "Avery, are you okay?" Dana asked, concern etched on her face. I took a moment to gather my thoughts, then nodded, though I knew I wasn't fine. "I need to do something," I said, my voice steady. "I can't let this go. I won't be silenced anymore." "What do you mean?" Mel asked, her brow furrowing. I explained everything. Noah's lies, the engagement party, and how I felt like I had been living in a fog of denial. As I spoke, I felt a fire igniting within me, fueled by the injustice of it all. "I'm going to post about it," I declared, surprising even myself. "I'm going to share my truth." Dana's eyes widened. "Are you sure that's a good idea? What if it backfires?" I shook my head, feeling resolute. I've spent too long worrying about how others perceive me. This isn't just about Noah or his family. It's about me reclaiming my narrative. I deserve to be heard. With their support, I pulled out my phone and opened Instagram. My heart raced as I typed out a caption that felt both liberating and terrifying. "Turns out the mountains are more welcoming than some families," I wrote, attaching a photo of me on the slopes, my face lit up with a genuine smile. It was a moment of joy, a stark contrast to the turmoil I felt inside. As I hit post, a wave of adrenaline surged through me. I felt exposed yet empowered, like I had finally taken a stand for myself. The notifications began to flood, and almost immediately, likes, comments, and messages from friends who had seen my post. Some were supportive, others curious, but all were a reminder that I was not alone in this. That evening, as I sat with Dana and Mel, I felt a sense of camaraderie that I hadn't experienced in a long time. We shared stories, laughter, and even tears, but most importantly, I felt seen. I realized that I had friends who valued me, who would stand by me no matter what. But as the night wore on, I couldn't shake the feeling of dread that loomed over me. I knew Noah would see the post, and I braced myself for the fallout. Would he understand my need to speak out? Or would he see it as a betrayal? The next morning, I woke up to a flurry of notifications. My post had gone viral among my friends and acquaintances, resonating with many who had faced similar situations. Messages poured in from women sharing their own stories of exclusion and betrayal, and I felt a sense of solidarity that warmed my heart. But then came the direct messages from Noah's family. They were not supportive. "What's your problem?" one of his cousins wrote. "You're making a scene." Another message from his mother read, "This isn't how we handle family matters." Each message felt like a punch to the gut, but I stood firm. I had made my choice, and I wouldn't back down. I was no longer the woman who would quietly accept being sidelined. I was Avery Fletcher, and I was ready to fight for my place in this world. As I prepared to face Noah later that day, I felt a mix of anxiety and determination. I knew the conversation would be difficult, but I was ready to stand my ground. I had taken the first step toward reclaiming my voice, and I wouldn't let anyone silence me again. This was my moment of truth, and I was ready to embrace it. The moment I stepped into the lodge that evening, I felt the tension in the air. Noah was already there, his posture rigid, arms crossed as he leaned against the kitchen counter. The sight of him sent a rush of conflicting emotions through me: love, anger, and a deep sense of betrayal. I had spent the day preparing for this confrontation, but now that the moment had arrived, I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He looked up, his expression a mix of frustration and confusion. "We need to talk," I continued, stepping further into the room. "About what?" he replied, his tone clipped. "About your post." I nodded, feeling the weight of my decision settle heavily on my shoulders. "Yes, about my post. You saw it, didn't you?" Of course I did, he snapped, pushing himself off the counter. What were you thinking, Avery? You made a scene. You embarrassed me in front of my family. Embarrassed you? I echoed, incredulous. You think I care about embarrassing you? I care about being treated with respect. You lied to me, Noah. You let me believe I was just missing a boring weekend while you celebrated your brother's engagement without me. How is that not a betrayal? He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I recognized as a sign of his mounting frustration. I didn't want to hurt you. My family is complicated. You know that. I thought it would be easier this way. Easier for whom? I shot back, my voice rising. You or me? Because it sure feels like you chose your family's comfort over my dignity. You let me feel like an outsider in my own marriage. Noah's face paled, and for a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of regret in his eyes. I didn't mean for it to happen like this, he said, his voice softer now. I thought you'd understand. Understand what? I demanded, my heart racing. That I'm not worth including in your family celebrations? That my feelings don't matter? I've spent years trying to fit into a family that doesn't want me, and now I find out you've been lying to me all along. The silence that followed was deafening. I could feel the weight of my words hanging in the air, and I knew I had struck a nerve. Noah looked away, his jaw clenched, and I could see the internal struggle playing out on his face. I thought things were getting better, I continued, my voice trembling. Last Christmas, your mom even complimented my casserole. I thought maybe I was finally becoming part of the family. Things are complicated, Avery, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. You don't know how my family operates. They have their ways that exclude me, I replied, my heart breaking. You've let them dictate our relationship. You've let them decide that I don't belong. And now, I'm done waiting for your family to accept me. I deserve better. Noah's expression shifted, and I could see the realization dawning on him. What are you saying? He asked, his voice trembling. I'm saying I won't be a part of this anymore, I said, my voice steady. I won't be the wife who stands by while you protect your family's image at the expense of my feelings. I deserve to be valued, to be included, and if that means stepping away from this relationship, then so be it. His eyes widened in shock, and for a moment I thought he might argue. But instead, he fell silent, the weight of my words settling over us like a heavy fog. I can change, he finally said, desperation creeping into his voice. We can go to counseling. I'll talk to my family. I'll make it right. Make what right? I asked, my heart aching. You've had 5 years to stand up for me, and you didn't. You chose to keep me in the dark while you celebrated with them. I can't keep living like this. As I spoke, I felt a sense of clarity wash over me. I had spent too long trying to fit into a mold that didn't include me. I was tired of being the outsider, tired of feeling invisible. I need to think, I said, my voice firm. I need to figure out what I want, and right now, I don't know if that includes you. With that, I turned and walked away, leaving Noah standing there, his expression a mix of shock and regret. I felt a rush of emotions, fear, sadness, but also a sense of liberation. I had finally found my voice, and I wasn't going to let anyone silence me again. As I stepped outside into the cold night air, I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the world lift off my shoulders. I was ready to embrace whatever came next, even if it meant facing the unknown. I had made my choice, and I was determined to stand by it. The cold night air wrapped around me as I stepped outside, the weight of my confrontation with Noah still heavy on my shoulders. I felt a mix of fear and exhilaration coursing through me. I had finally spoken my truth, but the uncertainty of what lay ahead loomed large. I needed to reclaim my identity, to rediscover who I was outside of Noah's family and the shadows they cast over my life. I found myself wandering the snowy paths around the lodge, the crunch of my boots breaking the silence of the night. The stars twinkled above, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of clarity. I was no longer just Noah's wife. I was Avery Fletcher, a woman with her own dreams, desires, and worth. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of laughter echoing through the lodge. Dana and Mel were already up, their energy infectious. Avery, we're going skiing, Dana called out, her eyes sparkling with excitement. I hesitated for a moment, still feeling the remnants of last night's confrontation, but then I remembered the exhilaration of gliding down the slopes. "Count me in," I replied, surprising myself with my enthusiasm. As we bundled up and headed out, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I was ready to embrace this moment, to reclaim the joy I had almost forgotten. On the slopes, I felt alive. The wind whipped through my hair as I carved my way down the mountain, each turn a reminder of my strength and resilience. I laughed with Dana and Mel, their encouragement lifting my spirits. For the first time in a long time, I felt free from the expectations of Noah's family, free from the weight of their judgment. After a day filled with laughter and adrenaline, we returned to the lodge, and I found myself reflecting on the past few days. I had spent so long trying to fit into a family that didn't want me, but now I was beginning to understand that my worth wasn't defined by their acceptance. I was more than just a wife. I was a woman with my own voice, my own story. That evening, as we sat around the fireplace, I shared my thoughts with Dana and Mel. "I've realized that I've been living in the shadows for too long," I confessed. "I've let Noah's family dictate how I see myself, and I'm done with that. I want to embrace who I am, not just who they want me to be." Mel nodded, her expression supportive. "You deserve to be seen, Avery. You're strong, smart, and so much more than just a part of someone else's story." Dana chimed in. "Exactly. You've got this. It's time to write your own narrative." Their words resonated deeply within me, and I felt a surge of determination. I decided to take control of my life, to focus on my passions and interests that had been sidelined for too long. I had always loved photography, capturing moments that told stories, and I realized it was time to pick up my camera again. The next day, I ventured out alone with my camera, exploring the breathtaking landscapes around the lodge. The mountains, the trees, the glistening snow, they all felt like a canvas waiting for my touch. As I snapped photos, I felt a sense of empowerment wash over me. Each click of the shutter was a reminder that I was reclaiming my identity, one frame at a time. I began to share my photos on social media, not just as a way to document my journey, but as a declaration of my newfound freedom. I wanted to show the world that I was more than just a wife. I was an artist, a storyteller, and a woman who had found her voice. As the days passed, I received messages from friends and even strangers, praising my work and encouraging me to keep going. It felt incredible to be seen for who I truly was, not just as an extension of Noah. I was carving out my own space in the world, and it felt exhilarating. But even amidst this newfound joy, I knew I had to confront the reality of my relationship with Noah. I couldn't ignore the fact that I had made a choice to step away, and I needed to decide what that meant for my future. One evening, as I sat by the fire, I reflected on everything that had happened. I had taken a stand for myself, and in doing so, I had begun to rediscover the woman I had lost along the way. I was ready to embrace whatever came next, whether it meant rebuilding my relationship with Noah or moving forward on my own. I felt a sense of peace settle over me. I was no longer defined by the expectations of others. I was Avery Fletcher, and I was ready to write my own story. As the sun rose over the mountains, casting a golden hue across the snow, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. The past few days had been a whirlwind of emotions, but now, standing on the brink of a new chapter, I felt ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. I had spent too long living in the shadows, and it was time to step into the light. After returning from the lodge, I knew I had to face Noah. I had taken the time to reflect on my feelings, my needs, and what I truly wanted from our relationship. I had reclaimed my identity, but I also understood that I needed to communicate my boundaries clearly. I couldn't go back to the way things were. I needed to forge a new path. When I arrived home, the house felt eerily quiet. I found Noah sitting on the couch, his expression a mix of anxiety and hope. "Avery," he said, standing as I entered. "I've been waiting for you." I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "We need to talk," I said, my voice firm but calm. I could see the tension in his shoulders as he nodded, and I gestured for him to sit down. "I've spent the last few days thinking about everything," I began, choosing my words carefully. "About us, about how I've felt in your family, and about the choices we've both made." Noah looked down, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. "I know I messed up, Avery. I should have included you. I should have fought for you." I nodded, appreciating his acknowledgement. "But it's not just about that. I've realized that I've been waiting for your family to accept me, to validate my place in your life. I can't do that anymore. I need to feel valued for who I am, not just as your wife." He looked up, his eyes searching mine. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that I want to rebuild our relationship, but it has to be different. I need you to stand up for me, to prioritize our marriage over family expectations. I can't be the outsider anymore." Noah's expression softened, and I could see the realization dawning on him. "I want that too, Avery. I want to make this work. I'll talk to my family. I'll make sure they understand how important you are to me." I felt a flicker of hope ignite within me. It won't be easy, but I believe we can do it. I want us to be a team, to support each other fully. As we talked, I felt the walls between us begin to crumble. We discussed our feelings, our fears, and our hopes for the future. It was a conversation filled with vulnerability and honesty, and for the first time in a long time, I felt truly seen. By the end of our discussion, I knew we were on the path to healing. It wouldn't be an overnight transformation, but we were both committed to making it work. I felt a sense of relief wash over me, knowing that I had stood up for myself and that Noah was willing to change. As I looked out the window at the mountains, I realized that this was just the beginning. I was ready to embrace my new identity, to pursue my passions, and to build a life that reflected who I truly was. I had reclaimed my voice, and now I was ready to write the next chapter of my story, one filled with love, authenticity, and the courage to be myself. With a renewed sense of purpose, I turned to Noah, a smile breaking across my face. "Let's do this together." And in that moment, I knew we were ready to face whatever came next, hand in hand.